Right, salut les filles. We're just going to have a look at the passé composé on page 102, but I just have a little PowerPoint here, so we're just going to have a look at this first, okay? So, from beginning. Okay, so this is the passé composé, okay? In French, you use the passé composé to say what you've done at a certain time in the past, okay? So it means it's composed of two parts, okay? So in French, this is called the passé because it's composed of two parts. So this is the auxiliary or the helper verb. So this is like either the avoir, which we've seen, and the past participle. This is the verb. The passé composé is usually formed by using the present tense of avoir, which we've seen already. So that's your j'ai, tu as, il a, and the past participle of the verb, just as in English. So you have to know the verb avoir, okay? So I think we know this, okay? So this is the singular is j'ai, I have, tu as, you have, il, elle a, he, she has, and then the plural forms of it, nous avons, we have, vous avez, you plural, ils, elles ont, they have. So that is the present tense of the verb. You have to know that verb for using any of these, okay? And then the verbs with avoir. So what I want you to do is maybe pause the video and try these, okay? So maybe just have a look and see if you can fill them in. So all you need to hear is include the correct the correct form of avoir, okay? So if you want to pause it and try it now. Okay, so here's the answers. So the first one, so here's your answers, okay? So j'ai fait, so that's j'ai fait. Nous avons fini, we have finished. Il a joué, he played. Vous avez regardé, il accenté in the E. Ils ont mangé au McDo, they had a McDonald's. Tu as choisi AS, ton livre. Elle a, he, she has been. Nous n'avons pas. Now that's a negative there, so whenever you put in a negative, it goes N apostrophe because you can't have two vowels clashing, and then the pas comes after the verb avoir, and so it goes in between the avoir and the verb. So it's the N apostrophe first, then avoir, the pas, and then the verb. Okay. Avez-vous, vous. So have you seen this film? And ils ont acheté un CD. Just be careful. Number it's tricky. So you have the new bit first, then you have like the N apostrophe because you can't have a E and an A clashing. Then you have a pas, then you have a vous. Okay. How to form the past participle. So what we've already seen this, but just to recap it. So with ER verbs, you take off the you take off it and add it with E accent. So like the verb jouer becomes jouer. With IR verbs, you take off the or you take off the IR, and then you're left with fini, F-I-N-I. So the IR, you take off the R and left for j'ai fini. With RE verbs, you take off the RE and you add on a U. So j'ai répondu. The verb to répondre, I responded, j'ai répondu. So usually what would the past participle be? So you don't need them in the Word document, okay? So like they're sample enough. So aimer, écouter, laver, porter, attendu, fini, manger, ranger, travailler, choisi, habiter, parler, regarder, vendu, demander, inviter, perdu, téléphone. So they're just like the present tense. The ER, IR, and RE verbs all follow a pattern. So now this is the bit I want to have a look at here with you today. Okay, so this is what's kind of summarized in page 102. So these verbs follow exactly like the ER, RE, but they're just irregular. Like, and it's always the same verbs in the past, present, future that are always irregular. Okay, so the verb avoir, to have, becomes eu. So j'ai eu, I had. The verb boire, to drink, becomes bu. So you drunk, tu as bu. Lire, the verb to read, becomes lu. Voir, the verb to see, becomes vu. Venir, the verb to come, venu. Now that verb's a bit different. That verb takes être, which we're going to see, and not today, but probably tomorrow. Okay, that there takes venu. Dire becomes dit. Yeah. Écrire, the verb to write, becomes écrit, E-C-R-I-T. Faire becomes fait, so j'ai fait, I did something. Prendre becomes pris, so that's the verb to take, becomes took. Apprendre, the verb to learn, becomes appris. Comprendre, to understand, becomes compris. And mettre, the verb to put, becomes mis. Now, there is a pattern to all these here, okay? So if you look here, for instance, like if you look at the verbs, so if you look at these verbs, any words like OIR, OIRE, RE, OIR, IR, they all take a, they all kind of end in the U. So that's your avoir, boire, lire, venue. Okay, so I would take these down into 3 categories, okay? Then you got your verbs, like you got here, you got your IRE, IRE, IRE. So like those verbs, dire, écrire, faire, they all take a T. So you dit, écrit, fait. So I put those 3 in a little grouping together, okay? So they all take a T. And these ones here, like prendre, apprendre, comprendre, mettre. Now, if you look here, if you look actually within these verbs, prendre takes pre. Apprendre is that all you're doing is you're adding on an AP to that. Same for comprendre, you're just adding com to comprendre. So each of those become our PRS. So prendre becomes pre. Then you add on at AP becomes après, and comprendre comes compris. So they all follow that pattern there. And then the last one, mettre to put becomes MIS. So there's your ISs down there. So split them into 3 columns. Maybe your irregulars here, like you put all these U ones that end in a U in a column, put all these ones that end in a IT in a column, and put all these ones that end in or and an IS in a column as well. And it should make it a little bit easier for you. So I'm going to give you a second. So try those now. Maybe pause the video and see if you can figure them out. Some of them are regular and some of them are, so this is an irregular, 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 irregular. That's a normal one, so that's a normal ER one. Irregular, that is a normal ER, that's a normal IR, that's a normal ER, and then that's irregular with a negation there, so be careful of that. So try those now. Maybe pause the video. Okay, so we'll have a look at the answers. So there we go. J'ai pris le bus. I took the bus. Il a bu. He took the bus. So the past participles never change. It's only the bit of être. So the minute you know this, it's only then a matter of conjugating avoir for these ones. Nous avons lu. We read these magazines. That's the verb lire. J'ai appris les vocabulaires. I learned the vocabulary. Okay. As-tu regardé la télévision? Did you watch the TV? So that's a regular, that's the verb regarder, that's a normal one, okay? That follows the ER pattern, so take off the ER and add an E accent. Qu'est-ce que vous avez fait? What did you do? So there's your fait, yeah? That's an irregular, that's the verb faire, to do. Il a joué de la guitare, so that he played the guitar, that's the verb jouer, so that's an irregular with an ER verb. Then we have fini, so that's regular, that's just a simple IR verb, so you take off the IR and you just add on an I. Nous avons écouté de la musique. So that's écouter, that's a normal ER verb, that's perfect. And the last one here is the irregular comprendre. So that's compris. Now look again at the negation here. So it's N apostrophe because you can't have the NE, you can't have 2 vowels clashing there. It's followed by the pas, always the pas, and then it's the compris, the verb. So that's just important there. Now, the next bit is we're going, not today, but later on, we're going to have a look at these verbs with être. Okay, so we've seen that passing will do avoir. We'll have a look at être. Okay, so just going to zoom out to our book. So here we have our book. Okay, so we're just having a look at page 102. Okay, page 102. So here, some of the irregular ones I summarized on the PowerPoint there. There's a whole pile here too. Like most of the ones we've got here, I've covered. There's a couple of extra ones like the verb croire, to believe becomes cru, devoir, do, savoir, su, pouvoir, pu, recevoir, reçu. So what I would do is remember we split them into kind of 3 columns. The ones that ended ended in like FAIT, then ended in the TIT like fair and écrit. Then we had the ones that end like with the U's, yeah, and then we had the ones that ends in the IS's, the RAS's or IS's. So maybe separate them into 3 columns because I think that's the easiest way to list them together. Okay, so Just down here, we have two, so it's exactly the same with the ER verb. So it's just this bit stays the same, the verb bit stays the same, like the participle. This is, yes, this is an example for pap, person, avoir, participle. So person, avoir, and the participle here is the verb. So this is the person. There's avoir conjugated, and then we have the participle. This is the bit of your verb here, okay? We've got j'ai bu, I drank, I have drank or I drunk. Tu as bu, you have drank. Il a bu, elle a bu, he, she drank. Nous avons bu, we have drank. Ils ont bu, they have drank. Elles ont bu, they have drank. So if you see here, look, the bu doesn't change at all. It's just the bit avoir for the different people. So that's the only thing that changes here. And it's the exact same here for the verb voir to see. If you look here now, I just want to pay attention to two things here. This verb hier, that is that is yesterday. So that's a time word. So whenever you see yesterday, you know that you're going to be using your passé composé. Yeah, hier j'ai bu un coca. Yeah, yesterday I drank a Coca-Cola. Okay, so you know whenever you see this hier, that's your time word. You're going to go, okay, I need to use the passé composé. Same for this one here, samedi dernier. Samedi dernier, last Saturday. So that, you know, like that's a time word. So you know that samedi dernier, that's in the past. So you're going to be using your passé composé. So samedi dernier, j'ai vu un bon film. I saw a good film. So like just whenever you see, we'll see those in another PowerPoint later on. That there's loads of these link words like samedi dernier, hier, yeah, le mois dernier, last month, la semaine dernière, last week. Whenever you hear like anything with last or yesterday or last year or 2 years ago, you're going to be more often not using your passé composé. Okay. The last two here we've got then is la forme négative, so it's making negative. So that's using like your pas, your ne pas in most cases. So for instance, like you got, so look, you got the verb boire, so we've got the je, the person, then we've got the n apostrophe here because we can't have two vowels clashing. You can't have the ne, so it has to be, you can't have two, the n, the e and the a clashing, so that becomes n apostrophe. Your verb avoir the whole way down here, like your a, avons, ave, ont, then followed by the pas. So these kind of sandwich around, so these kind of surround the avoir bit. So you have the n apostrophe, avoir always followed by the pas, and then the last bit then is the verb bu. So it never changes. This is a wee bit more complicated, but once you get the hang of it, it does make sense, okay? So don't worry too much about this, but yet I want you to focus mainly on these irregulars and formula, but be aware of this as well, okay? Then as well, you've got making a question. So all you're doing here is you're just swapping them around. You're just swapping them around, really. So, but all I want you to focus on for the moment is the irregulars here and the negative. They're kind of the most important bit, okay? The most important bit here, okay? So what I want you to do for tonight is I want you to do two things. Sorry, to do for the next day. So I want you to fill in the verb faire. So you're going to fill in the blocks. So fill in like the person, like the j'ai, tu, il, elle, yeah. Fill in the verb avoir, and then to finish off the FAIT. Okay, same for career, that's the verb to run. Okay, so you're going to fill that in, fill in like the avoir bit and then the verb and the different people. Then I want you to try these ones here, just fill in, so put in the correct, for the bit, the avoir bit's given for you, so you just have to put in the correct participle. So for instance, this one here, I went cycling yesterday, so it's going to be F-A-I-T. J'ai fait du vélo here. I went cycling, or I did cycling yesterday. Same this one here. Tu as vu? Did you see his letter? Have you seen your pen pal, your correspondent? Okay. You see, so fill those in just with the verbs. Okay. Then this part 3 is you have to put in. You're gonna have to put in the correct bit of verb, the correct bit of avoir, and the verb as well. So for instance, this one here. I ran very quick yesterday, so it's going to be j'ai, and then couru, yeah, C-O-U-R, U. J'ai couru, so so you put in two bits, the bit avoir and the verb as well, okay? Try those couple and see how you get on with them, okay? See how we get on with them, okay? So I want you to fill in these blocks, fill in the correct bit of the verb, and then put in avoir and the verb in these sections here. Is that okay? Merci beaucoup, les filles.